Hello there. You will notice that I am not in fact Amara Dyer, and this is not in fact Northumbria Spiritual Commons, it's Louise Reeve. Unfortunately, some of the recording of Amara Dyer's service was lost due to a couple of issues with the computer, so I've re-recorded the missing bits here. Our opening words are: suspended between all that was and all that might be, we struggle to find this very moment, to live this very moment. Let us sit together for a moment and savour this moment. Let us relish this between time where past meets future. Let us harbour a faith that reminds us that right now, right here, is enough. The 8 worldly winds. The world we experience around us is always affecting us in positive and negative ways. We can think of 8 conditions or experiences that we all experience almost every day in various ways, but they come in pairs, 4 that we crave and 4 that we are averse to. The acquisition of one and the avoidance of the other are at the heart of the problem of life. It is unsatisfying and endless. Gain and loss. We are shopping and find the top we want and at a bargain price. Gain. We find that someone has just bought the last one in our size. Loss. The traffic light is green as we approach, and we sail past just before it turns red. Gain. We happen to be in the car directly behind. Loss. As though you are a character in a video game, 1 minute winning, the next losing. Hopefully, when it's just a video game, one can take it with good humour. But when it's the game of life itself, we can get pretty upset when our character is deemed to be losing. A large part of this can be comparison, that whether we feel we are winning or losing is gauged by how much we deem others around us are doing in this game. We might not even notice gain as much as loss. Do we have a tendency to notice loss and feel that all little wins, well, isn't that how life should be anyway? It's not necessarily a conscious thought or conscious view that we hold, but life going smoothly sort of feels how things should be. And often when we encounter difficulties, it feels like, hang on, it's not supposed to be this way. Something has gone wrong. Nothing has gone wrong when the less favourable wind is blowing. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's the other, and that's just how it is. And both winds are transitory, fluctuating, and yet somehow, when one of them is blowing particularly strongly, perhaps the pleasant one or the unpleasant one, we can lose sight of their impermanence. When we're suffering, it can feel as though, well, this is how it's going to be forever. I can't see beyond it, and I can't foresee a better time. And it's similar for when the favourable wind is blowing. Complacency can set in, and it feels like it will be this way, always.
So yeah, anyway, being generally liked or disliked by others can be a very strong motivating factor for us in life. The next 2 are praise and blame. Now these 2 immediately sound quite similar to what we've just been talking about, but whereas fame and infamy are about our general reputation and our public face, praise and blame are experienced in relation to specific things that we've done or not done. So yeah, approval or disapproval from others in relation to our conduct. Reverend Daishan Morgan, who was the abbot up at Throstle Hole, which is a Soto Zen monastery, not far past Hexham, but quite local. I remember him talking about this in a talk. He said when he was the abbot, he used to kind of, when he was going around the monastery and he would see something positive going on, people engaged in building a wall or painting a wall or whatever that needs doing around the monastery, he would kind of, as he was passing, say some encouraging, improving things. And then he would find that the very same people the next day or a week later would say, you know, you never appreciate my efforts, you never say anything. And he would think, what? And I guess because people forget, don't they? Again, human beings might have a tendency to remember the insults and never really remember the praise. And yeah, so when we have a kind of narrative going on, and we all have kind of narratives that might start in our formative years, but over a lifetime, they can really kind of set in. So someone might have a narrative that they are always unappreciated, they're always the underdog. And it's really quite astonishing, it's really quite impressive almost, how the narrative can always reassert itself, even in light of evidence to the contrary. So anyway, Reverend Morgan would think, he thought to himself, well, yes, I should do more of that. I should, I should say more encouraging, improving things, because that is really important, that people feel seen in their efforts and appreciated. So you find himself going around the monastery going, oh, that's wonderful, like really kind of overly enthusiastic. And I think eventually came to the conclusion that whilst that is important, obviously these type of things can be very needy in us, seeking people's approval and recognition. And actually, if you went around kind of scowling at everybody, it might be more effective in the sense of actually getting them to really reflect on all of the ways in which they are looking outside of themselves for satisfaction. If only they would say that I'm good, if only they would recognize me, then it would be all right. But well, how often does that happen? We can't depend upon it, we can't crave it, we can't rely upon it. We have to get our sense of validation from somewhere else, somewhere a bit more internal, I suppose. And I think it's true that when we do want these things, how much is enough? When we do want praise and approval, it could never be enough, really. As for blame, well, we sometimes get blamed, don't we, for things that either were or were not our fault, and either way, it's a bit unpleasant. And also, we can at times find ourselves in a sort of wanting to blame. If only polluters stopped polluting, if only politicians were honourable and not corrupt, and on and on and on. So we can find ourselves in a kind of blaming relationship with the world. But whether we are getting blamed or whether we are wanting to blame, again, something's wanting to kind of rise up inside and say, it's not fair. It's not fair. It's that person's fault, or it's that group of people's fault, and it's not my fault. And I'm so justified in feeling this. And I think that's true. I think sometimes we are quite justified in our outrage or our blame. But in my experience, I have to say that the only thing that tends to lead to, taking it from the point of view of being justified, is it carries on the hurt little me, the kind of outraged, angry me. That construct of the angry little me in the world gets continued and fed by that sense of justification. I'm so justified in feeling it. So yeah, I wrote down a very short, it's only a few lines long. It's from the Dhammapada. It's a very kind of well-loved Buddhist text because it's so pithy. It's just full of tiny little verses. Those who entertain such thoughts as he abused me, he beat me, he robbed me, will never still their hatred. Those who do not entertain such thoughts, that is to say, those who abandon such thoughts, will still their hatred. So thoughts like that arise for all of us, kind of victimized thoughts, thoughts of blame, and thoughts of being justified in that. They arise for all of us, but it's really a matter of, do we entertain them, or are we able to abandon them? And if we want to still our hatred, we're asked to abandon them. It's not an easy ask. When obviously some people's behaviour can be absolutely outrageous. People can be very not aware of the suffering that they're causing other people, and we can feel very justified. So it's not very. It's a tall ask actually to think. Okay, I'm completely justified in this and I need to completely let it go. Yeah, I think Buddhism does very often show itself to be not an easy path. Well, the spiritual life in general, it's just not an easy thing. You sometimes have to have a lot of stamina to live the spiritual life. And finally, pleasure and pain. I mean, we can take this one as a bit of a kind of an umbrella wind, in the sense that everything that we've looked at so far is, more specific examples of pleasure and pain. If we don't take this one so broadly, then we can take it to refer to physical pleasure and physical pain. And I'm sure we're all aware of all of the ways in which we chase after physical pleasures and run away from physical pains. If we don't take it, well, whether we take it this one specifically as that or more broadly to include all experience, in a way that is almost the definition of a living organism, isn't it? All living organisms, from very simple to more complex, shy away from pain or something that it deems threatening, and gravitates towards pleasure or something that it deems will nourish it in some way. So we might always do that. We might always do that to a certain extent on a kind of basic survival level. But without awareness, it can become the sole motivating factor in life. And yeah, as I said by starting out this talk, that in a nutshell, according to Buddhism, is how one meanders through this life and possibly through other lifetimes as well. It's what keeps the whole wheel of existence turning. All of our movements towards pleasure, all of our movements towards pain. This is what keeps us binded or bound. Is that a word? And as I said, it's endless and rather unsatisfying experience. So as a way of suggesting a response to the teaching on the worldly rhythms, first of all, we're encouraged to get to know them as a list, really get to know them as a list. So they are gain and loss, fame and infamy, praise and blame, and pleasure and pain. And then get to know them as a reality. So really start to, with awareness, start to really notice which wind is blowing and when. And then, of course, comes the practice of acceptance, radical acceptance. It never works, we sometimes say in Buddhism, it never works to fight conditions, never works to fight the conditions of the moment. In fact, it's only through acceptance of current conditions, whatever they are, whichever wind is blowing, that we start to be kind of freed up from them. Obviously they'll always blow, but freed up in the sense of not being so at the mercy of them. And as I said earlier, all of these are transitory. I don't know at what point the whole idea of calling them winds came about. When we look at the Buddhist texts, they're usually called the 8 worldly conditions. But whenever the whole idea of winds came, I mean, it's quite interesting, because one implication is that we are kind of blown off course by these. We're blown about by these. As I said, kind of at the mercy of them, carried away by them as if by a wind. But another implication is that they're lacking substance ultimately. The actual wind, which we've had quite a lot of just a few weeks ago, but it lacks any kind of form or solidity, nothing that you can kind of grab onto. I suppose what we see is the effects of the wind. And so these things are they're a bit like that. They're just like the weather. They're just like the weather. They're just the weather that we encounter along the way. And are we able to find some stillness, no matter what the weather happens to be? Are we able to stay grounded, no matter which wind is blowing or how hard? And I think a large part of our success in that will be to not lose sight of its transitory nature or its insubstantial nature. These are two very, very important reflections in Buddhism. The Buddha, I think, wanted us to really see the insubstantial nature of everything and the transient nature of everything. Really see it for ourselves. It's not enough to just kind of hear it from somebody, even if it's somebody like the Buddha, and say, well, yeah, okay, things are transitory and don't really have much substance. We have to kind of really see it and feel it in every fibre of our being. I wanted to end by acknowledging that the worldly winds are often talked about as these smaller everyday things that we've talked about, finding the top that we want and a bargain price, and then finding someone who's bought the last one on your size. You know, these day-by-day occurrences being blown by all the little pleasures and pains or the gains and losses. But of course, life can throw us some really quite challenging situations indeed. You know, these are not just always little breezes, they can be out and out hurricanes, yeah. But that response of retaining some stillness remains the same, no matter how choppy the waters get. And that practicing it with these daily worldly winds really does set us up good for you know, the more challenging situations that life can bring. So we sometimes say never underestimate the accumulative effect of daily practice. How our minds are when it comes to the crunch, whatever the crunch happens to be, whether it's bad health or death of a loved one or whatever. How our minds are at that moment depends a lot on how we've used our minds prior to the crunch. Okay. So that's a very brief introduction to the worldly winds and how we kind of just, you know, beginning to notice them and working with them through awareness and acceptance. So I didn't bring my meditation bell, but that's not the end of the world. It's really just a nice way to signify, to signal the beginning and the end of the meditation, but it's not essential. So yes, well, if we want a life with more awareness, how do we start? Well, we usually start right here, just sitting in meditation and kind of getting the groundwork going. And then once we're back out there in the real world and the winds are blowing, well, we've done a lot of the groundwork and we've got a lot more awareness because we've practiced it. What we practice, we get better at. Shocking. Okay, so this will be about 25 minutes. First of all, the very first thing that we always do is pay attention to how the body is. Body and mind are completely related. How you hold your body really affects how your mind is. So if we're kind of slouching a little bit, the mind also might be a bit slouchy. So we tend to keep the shoulders back. We don't sit rigid either. So even though we're straightening up, well, the body will tell us what to do as we go on. If you find the body is kind of tensing a bit or being a bit rigid, then you might need to relax your effort a bit. Similarly, if the body's slouching a bit, you might need to put a bit more effort in. So the body's a good indicator of what the mind. Your shoulders, make sure that they drop them down. Don't forget the more subtle muscles as well, your throat muscles and all the muscles around your eyes and your jaw. Just deep relaxation. Don't worry about what mind is doing. It might be quite busy. But is the body relaxed now? You do that by all the bodily sensations that are present. It brings them quite vibrant in your awareness. You can rest all of your awareness there for a bit. Keep giving all of your weight down to the chair. And use the out breath every time it has grounded and supported. Somewhere in your awareness, count one, just as the out breath is leaving the body. Breathe normally. Breathe out on two. You can do that all the way to 10. Just don't make the aim of the meditation the counting. That's just a tool to help us stay. Keep relaxing into what we're doing. Release away from the breath. That is just the nature of mind. It's really important that with kindness and willing. I see people have a kind of fluid awareness of the hold on to any bit. When things come, let them come. Just taking your attention to a whole emotional nature, waking up the heart. Recognizing that we all desire happiness and we all wish to avoid suffering. Just trusting that is the heartfelt wish for all beings. May all beings everywhere be loved. So just breathing in loving kindness and breathing out loving kindness. Waking up something. Bring the space around.